De-escalation zones in Syria. That was one of the main topics broached today within the last hour, in fact, during talks between the Russian and Turkish leaders in Sochi. We're crossing Laut Hitam, our correspondent who's there to put more meat on the bones of that in the Black Sea resort. Coming up too, news that the German defence minister's cancelled a trip to the United States and summoned her military top brass after a spate of scandals has rocked the army. The latest has seen the arrest of an officer suspected of planning to attack top officials. And people around the world post videos of themselves drinking salt water. Why are they doing that? Well, it's in support of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners hunger striking right now in Israeli jails. Hi, just turned 6 p.m. here in Moscow. My name's Kevin Owen. This is RT International. So our top story, the leaders of Russia and Turkey have just spoken to the media, as you'll know if you're watching us a couple of minutes ago, after talks at Vladimir Putin's residence in Sochi. The Syrian crisis dominated Wednesday's agenda too.
We hope these no-fly zones will be established.
One of the ways to strengthen the ceasefire regime is to create these safety zones, or de-escalation zones. Yesterday I discussed this issue with President Trump. As far as I understand, the American side supports the idea.
RT2 Petrenko, as I said, has been down there covering this for us. Take us through some of the salient points, the major points of what were brought up there.
Kevin, hello again. The media conference was over about 20 minutes ago, and I can tell you that during that event, both presidents referred to each other as friends. And you may ask, what does this have to do with Syria? Well, I can tell you that is important in many ways, because when the leaders of two countries, which have so many differences in their approach to what's happening on the ground in that war-torn country, when they are in such close contact and when the level of trust is so high, that is really a signal towards really restoring peace. Now, you've just heard the statements about the creation of so-called safe zones. Many names were used during the press conference, including violence-free zones, de-escalation zones. Well, again, when there's so much discussion about this, and when we hear from Vladimir Putin that the guarantors of the current ceasefire Astana process, as it's called, all support it. That means we've got Turkey, Russia, and Iran. And when also in a phone conversation, Donald Trump says that essentially the White House is also in one way or another supporting this idea. This means that there could be a breakthrough reached soon. So that is very important to hear. But Vladimir Putin also said during that press conference that the creation of those safe zones or violence-free zone is not the most important thing. The most important thing is how they will be maintained, how the peace process there can be monitored. He was also asked about no-fly zones, to which Vladimir Putin responded that they are only possible when it is guaranteed that in these non-violent zones there is an actual cessation of hostilities. Well, also here I have to mention that when it comes to the list of terrorist organizations in Syria, both leaders are saying that they are on common ground, on the same page. But when Tayyip Erdogan is calling the YPG, the Kurdish forces on the ground, terrorists, that may be a big stumbling block. And just to remind you, the recent Turkish strikes on Kurdish positions in Iraq and Syria caused a lot of concern in Moscow and Washington. So this is something that is still up for discussion. It will be a tough discussion, but as we've heard from Mr. Putin and Mr. Erdogan, they will continue to be in close contact. We're going to get more phone calls, and they are going to meet later in May in Turkey. So we'll see how these issues can be solved, how these things can be figured out.
All right, Ilya, thanks for the update there from Sochi. To get another view on it now, we go to Professor St. Bachi from the Middle East Technical University. Hi, thanks for your time today. Looking on from where you are. Well, from where you are, how significant do you think this meeting was today? Big deal?
I think so. for two reasons. First of all, the Turkish-Russian relations will improve in the future. The second one, Russia and Turkey will be playing much more important role now in the Middle East peace process. Turkey is moving more and more to the Russian position, having further different views with the United States of America. So whatever is going to happen in the Middle East, from now on, it looks that Turkey is trying to balance the Russia and the America in the field, but at the same time, Turkey is trying to be much more careful than ever before with the relations of the United States of America, because America supports directly YPG, which is considered by Turkey as a terrorist organization. This different view will remain, and most probably today in Sochi, one of the main important topics has been how the Astana process is going, because Astana process is the one where Russia, Iran and Turkey will try to get a much better solution for the Syrian issue. This debate of safe zones or how the Americans will be deployed there, how the Kurds will be supported, is a question what Turkey's primary concern, and the Turkish bombing in recent days is not the last one in this context, but it will be more if the Americans further continue to support PKK or YPG forces. I think Turkish president was seeking more advice and help from the Russian president and tries to withdraw, to draw Russia to his line. We will see later on how Putin will react.
There have been so many false dawns here in Syria, so now we're hearing about this creation potential of these safe zones, but how's that going to happen, given Turkey's actions against Kurds in Iraq and Syria and the way that they see no difference between the YPG and ISIL? That's something that Russia and the US doesn't agree with. Are they going to be able to overcome that huge stumbling block?
I think so. It is emerging already, but Turkey is now for two blocks at the same distance. Turkey's primary concern to set it up in the front, this is that Turkey is not interested to have another PKK, is not having to have a Kurdish state there, whereas the recent emergence of bloc that the Americans are supporting directly, it will create a long-term problem between Turkey and the West in general. I think this meeting today in Sochi is also indicating that Turkey is seeking much more togetherness with Russia than the Americans. Every day I can analyze the Turkish-American position in Syria is getting out from each other, and Turkey is rapproching more to Russian position, which is definitely good for Russia and not good for Turkish-American relations. When the Turkish president is going to meet the American president soon, I'm also very much interested to see what Mr. Trump is talking to Turkish president concerning this American direct military support and building the bloc. This is a potential conflict, potential crisis between Turkey and the United States of America, and this crisis is definitely not far away. I can only say this one.
With a view from Turkey there, Dr. St. Batchy, we'll leave it for now. Thanks for your input. Nice to see you today.